Ricky Kidd here with I Am Resilience, coming to you from the Freedom Lap 2020 tour. We've taken you 4,500 miles across the country, raising awareness about wrongful convictions here in America. It's time to talk nothing but the facts, please. How do we get here? I mean, really. Before we talk about innocence and wrongful convictions, let's go back and look at the 13th Amendment real quick. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for a crime. This happened in December of 1865. The trick to this amendment, then and now, is that it was a loophole to still take ownership of humans. All slave owners, many who were businessmen and lawmakers, all they had to do was start establishing the laws that considered an act a crime. It would be enough then to take back possession of the humans and keep slavery active. If there was no crime, then no big deal. What would stop them from falsely accusing someone of a crime? Absolutely nothing. In 2020, today, what will stop them of accusing or from accusing people of a crime? Absolutely nothing. Before 1963, United States Supreme Court case Gideon versus Wainwright, only wealthy people could afford an attorney, thus afford to defend themselves from any false accusation. Otherwise, you were guilty simply because someone else, likely white folks, said you were. And an all-white jury and white judge will be more than happy to convict you of a crime and put you in bondage, back in bondage as a slave. Today in 2020, Gideon versus Wainwright might as well not have passed. Because although all citizens have a right to appointed counsel, you will not get effective assistance of counsel if you are trying to rely on a public defender system across the country to do that for you. By the way, the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution affords you this right to effective assistance of counsel. Failed public defender systems across the country are a direct result of wrongful convictions, and we're going to talk about that in the days ahead. But the question starting off is, how did we get here, Ricky? I mean, really. We can start by acknowledging the role of the 13th Amendment. We could start by acknowledging the role of the 13th Amendment and the role it has played in the issue of wrongful convictions. How do we get here, Ricky? I mean, really. Another reason is the devalue of poor people, black people, and systemic racism, along with implicit bias. That is one of the reasons how we got here. The National Registry for Exoneration has found that innocent black people are 7 times more likely to be wrongfully convicted than an innocent white person. Black people make up about 13% of our population here in the U.S. However, black people make up about 47% of those found to be wrongfully convicted. So how do we get here? Once again, the devalue of poor people, black people, along with systemic racism and implicit bias. How do we get here, Ricky? I mean, really. Another reason, America's blind trust for our law enforcement and judicial officials, as well as their lack of education pertaining to the issues of wrongful convictions here in America. Studies by Professor Kevin Mullinix, a political science professor out of the University of Kansas, show that many Americans have demonstrated blind trust for our elected officials, our courts, and our police departments. They simply believe that a person charged must have done the crime, and if convicted, must have been guilty. Another factor is that Americans are uneducated or unaware about the issues of wrongful convictions. Such being the case, gives the unattended nod and wink to those officials to do whatever, even if it's wrong. because we are uneducated about this area. Thus, there is no consequence from us as citizens and as voters because we don't know a wrong is even being done in the first place. When society is aware and educated on the issues, when those powers to be know that the community is paying attention, they are less likely to commit egregious acts and behaviors for fear of being exposed. Professor Mullinex studies have shown that the Netflix series, Making of a Murderer, How They See Us, and other high-profile exonerations in the media has helped shift society's attention to the problem. Without these shows, media coverage, and the need for even more, like this platform here, I Am Resilience and Freedom Lab 2020, you can see how we got here. And so many people have asked me, when you say how we got here, because I've been talking about this for some time, what exactly does here mean? Where are we? We are at a place, American people, where 5% of the U.S. prison population is believed to be a result of a wrongful conviction. There are 2.3 million individuals languishing inside prisons all across the country. That means roughly 115,000 of those 2.3 are actually innocent men and women who have not committed their crimes. If we stay in line with the math, that means 5 out of every 100 or 5 out of every 100 cases is a result of a wrongful conviction. That's where we are. Where are we when we say, how do we get here? Only 2,661 of innocent individuals have been officially exonerated according to the National Registry. So if there's 115,000 individuals believed to be wrongfully convicted since 1989, only 2,661 of those individuals have been released. A total loss of 23,770 years. I myself have been listed as 2,503. 2,503. That was my number as of August 15th, 2019. If you do the math of 2,661 and 2,503, we're talking about an additional 158 individuals have come home after me since last year. And that number continues to grow. When we started this tour 24 days ago, it was at 2,650. When we checked, when we checked back again, it was at 2,658. And now we check, as of today, August 24th, 2020, and it's 2,661. If that numbers remain consistent, that 158 individuals are getting out in the course of a year. Let's just stop right here. If that number remains consistent, that 158 individuals are getting out each year. And since 1989 to today, that's 30 years or 31 years. So over the next 31 years, if we get 158 people out every year, that will only be 4,898 people. Remember the numbers, over 115,000. If we only bring 5,000 more people home at this rate, people say, that's good, that's good. Innocent people are coming home. It's not good. We will still be far behind. That would mean we would still have 110,000 people still in prison for crimes they didn't commit. And don't forget that 5 out of every 100 new cases is a result of a wrongful conviction. The good news, those numbers of innocent people coming home are increasing. And as I said, the bad news is that 5,000 more coming home over the next 30 years will not be a drop in the bucket. People, this is a crisis in America. Wrongful convictions is a crisis in America. The average cost to house a person in prison is between $20,000 to $30,000 a year, depending on the region. 20,000 times 20 years, because that is the average time that a person spends in prison before their release, is $400,000 per person. The United States spends $400,000 on average keeping the wrong person in prison over 20 years. If you take the 400,000 times 115,000 believed to be languishing in prisons across the country, that is $46 billion would it be? $46 billion. Who's paying that? You are. Taxpayers. Nothing but the facts, please. And if you want it to make a little bit more sense to you, that is about $2 billion a year. That's about $2 billion a year that you, us, taxpayers, are spending keeping the wrong person in prison. Folks, we have a crisis in America, an innocent crisis in America. If you're not yet convinced, if you need a little bit more information, what are some of the causes of wrongful convictions in America? Mistaken identification is at 28%. Unvalidated forensic science, what they call junk science, 24% of wrongful convictions are caused by junk science. 12% of wrongful convictions are caused by false confessions. Jailhouse snitch testimony, also known as perjury or false accusations, is a whopping 59%. 59% of wrongful convictions here in the U.S. is a result of bad snitch testimony or jailhouse snitch testimony, where somebody overheard somebody maybe talk about their case, probably pleading their innocence. Take a little bit about what they heard, go to police, say, give me a deal, and then make up the rest of the story. They send the innocent person to prison. Job done. Police and prosecutorial misconduct or official misconduct. 54% of wrongful convictions are a result of police or prosecutorial misconduct. 54%. And if you're talking about homicides, it jumps up to 72%. 72% of homicide wrongful convictions is a result of police or prosecutorial misconduct. Remember, I talked about America's blind trust for law enforcement and judicial officials. We're going to talk about that later. Of the many states that Don and I have traveled over the past 30 days, or would have been 30 days, of this Freedom Lab 2020 tour, they all have contributed to the crisis of wrongful convictions in this country. We started out in Kansas. Since 1989, the National Registry of Exoneration has marked Kansas as releasing only 12 people. As of 2019, no people. We then went to Missouri. We're from Missouri. I fell out of Missouri. Since 1989, 53 people have been released out of the state of Missouri. Only one last year in 2019. That would have been myself. We then went to Arkansas. 10 people since 1989 have been released out of the state of Arkansas. Only one in 2019. We went through Tennessee. 28 people have been released since 1989, according to the National Registry of Exoneration, but only one in 2019. In Georgia, 39 has been released over 31 years, 2 last year. South Carolina, very stingy, only 8. Only 8 people have been released out of South Carolina since 1989, over 31 years, and only 1 last year. Virginia, 56. In 31 years, 56 people have been released and registered as being innocent according to the National Registry of Exoneration. But again, only one released last year. Maryland is another state. All these states, these are the states that my fiance and I have visited. Maryland, 39 individuals have been released since 1989, 7 just last year alone. Pennsylvania, 95 people have been released over the past 31 years out of Pennsylvania, 15 of them in 2019 alone. Ohio, we just left Ohio. We did a lot of coverage in Ohio. 85 individuals have been released in the last 31 years from Ohio, but only one in 2019. In Indiana, 38 people have been released since 1989. Over the past 31 years, only 2 in 2019. Illinois, 335 individuals have been released since 1989. 335 people. 30 last year alone. 30 in 2019 alone. Nothing but the facts, please. Iowa, 16 since 1989. 0 last year. Nebraska, 10 since 1989. And last year, 0. Colorado, 11 over the past 31 years. Colorado has only let 11 people go and only 1 in 2019. Nothing but the facts, please. Nothing but the facts. And the fact is, if those numbers hold true, and the studies from the National Registry of Exoneration, from Dr. Samuel Gross from Michigan University, from individuals like Mark Gotze, from individuals like Professor Sean O'Brien, from individuals like Barry Scheck and Peter Nofield, from the New England Society or Innocence Project. These studies strongly suggest that over 100,000 individuals are in our prison system who are actually innocent of their crime. That would mean that each state, if divided evenly, would house about 2,000 individuals who are actually innocent of their charge, give or take, because some states have different issues. Most of these states have similar issues: failed public defender systems, bad identification procedures. They have poor snitch testimony policies. They all run even, give or take. And so if you put 2,000 individuals innocently in each one of these states, or 1,000, or even 500, and you only letting 10 of them go, 11 of them go, over 31 years, some of them none last year. This is a silent crisis in America. Innocence is a crisis in America. During our Freedom Lab 2020, we brought you the voices of individuals who are claiming to be innocent. You heard from them. The voices of innocent people finally released. You heard from some of them. The voices of the lawyers doing the work to free these innocent people. You heard from some of them as well. Groups and organizations fighting to tackle the bigger picture of criminal justice issues that plays a role in wrongful convictions. We've brought you those voices as well. You've seen federal and state prisons in 5 states that is likely housing wrongfully convicted individuals. Out of Arkansas, out of Georgia, out of Indiana, out of Ohio. We took you to the United States Supreme Court, folks, where the decisions that affect wrongful convicted people often begin or end. We took you to the African American History Monument in South Carolina for context and where we've been as a people and where we are now. We took you to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Monument in Washington, D.C. to explain to you the power of doing and the effectiveness of an awareness campaign. We took you to the Paul Cuffey Abolitionist Center in Sumter, South Carolina, to highlight that the problem of wrongful convictions and all other forms of injustice in this country starts with the 13th Amendment. We also brought you the names, the numbers, and we brought you facts and stats of all sorts on this Freedom Lap 2020 tour. The question now, what are the solutions? What are we going to do about it? What are the solutions? And beginning tomorrow, we will have a lineup of professionals, prosecutors, defense lawyers, civil lawyers, investigators, and community activists to discuss nothing but the solutions. So stay tuned for that lineup. Together, we get to do this. Together, we are going to do this. Nothing but the facts. Please.